Hello, today we are going to go over some test-taking strategies. While we're gearing up for the Keystone benchmark here in the literature test, you can probably use these test-taking strategies for just about any test that you have to take now or in the future. So here's your first test-taking strategy. We're a cyber school, and we don't necessarily do standardized tests through our computer all the time. We actually have to have you go somewhere to take those tests. So you've already reviewed and practiced your skills in the weeks leading up to the test. What you need to do on the day of the test is to arrive at the test site on time. Know how you're going to get there a few days before. You have to be there, of course. And come with a scratch paper and a pen or a pencil at your desk. For the keystones, you want to make sure you bring at least 2 number 2 pencils. Test taking strategy number 2, follow directions. Although they may get a little bit repetitive, always listen to the directions given by the instructor in the classroom. Read the directions written on the test as they read them. Read the question and all answer choices before marking anything when you're actually doing the test. Ask the teacher in the room if you do not understand the directions. They will not be able to help you with any specific questions, but they can always help you if you do not understand the directions. Number 3, use the elimination strategy. If you can't figure out which answer is correct, try to eliminate or get rid of the answers that you know are definitely wrong. Do this by eliminating the obviously wrong answer choices, eliminate choices that are partly correct, or eliminate items that are correct but don't answer the question. Test-taking strategy number 4. Go ahead and make an educated guess. An educated guess means using everything you know to attempt to answer the question. A random guess gives you a 25% chance of getting the answer right. An educated guess gives you the chance of answering correctly up to 75% of the time. So if you're looking at a question and you're kind of stuck on some of the answers, ask yourself if the answers even make sense. Sometimes we get so caught up in the stress of a test that we aren't really looking at the answers in terms of if they make sense or if they're even logical. If something isn't logical, you're going to be able to cross that right off and eliminate to make a better educated guess. Test-taking strategy number 5. Answer every single question, even if you're not sure. If you leave the answer bubbles blank, your chance of getting the correct answer is 0%. Okay? If you don't try, you're definitely going to fail it. You will get a 0. If you try to make an educated guess and choose one choice out of 4 answers, you have a 1 in 4 or 25% chance of getting it correct. If you can eliminate one choice and then narrow it down to 3 answers, then you now have a 33% chance of getting the answer correct. If you can eliminate 2 choices and get it down to just 2 other choices, go ahead and make a guess. You've got a 50-50 shot here. And if you're able to actually eliminate all 3 choices, then you know you've got that answer correct and you can be happy to move forward. Test-taking strategy number 6, beware of absolute words. So these are the trick words that you have to watch out for in questions. Answers with the following words are usually wrong or false. So any sentence or answer in multiple choice that includes words like all, must, never, entirely, worst, everyone, always, none, every, best, or only. Be really wary when you're looking at these. Those absolute generalizations often are false, so you want to make sure you don't include those and go ahead and eliminate them. Which of the following is true for people who live in California? Here's an example. You can see here the first question, the first possible answer says everyone in California lives on the San Andreas Fault. Everyone in California, huh? That's a pretty big fault. Now, not everyone does, so you can immediately cross that off because you know that not everyone lives on the fault. Down here you see only people who live in California experience earthquakes. Well, we know that's not true either, so the word only eliminates everybody who doesn't live in California, and there are earthquakes everywhere. Again, these just don't make logical sense, so if you can look at those, recognize those words, those absolute words, you can automatically cross off 2 answers. Now you've got a 50-50 shot, even if you don't understand whether the answer is going to be B or D. Test taking strategy number 7. Look for general words. Answers with the following words are usually correct or true. This doesn't necessarily make them the right answer, but at least you know that it's not a statement that's false that you can immediately eliminate. So you have to be careful and consider these. General words include some, generally, frequently, most, many, seldom, sometimes, usually, probably, few, and often. Go back and look at our example again. Which of the following is true for people who live in California? We had everyone and only, and we marked those off. B says, because California's most powerful earthquake was in 1906, the next powerful earthquake will be centuries away. D says, people living in California experience earthquakes more frequently than any other place in the country. Let's think about these two answers and do they make sense? Because California's most powerful earthquake was in 1906, the next powerful earthquake will be centuries away. Do we really have any idea of knowing if that's true? No, that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. So let's look at D, which now we know is going to be our right answer. It says people living in California experience earthquakes more frequently than in any other place in the country. This is true. More frequently doesn't mean always, doesn't mean only. It just means more frequently than any other place in the country. That's going to be our right answer. Test taking strategy number 8. Look for clues. The context of a word includes all words and sentences that surround it and the situation in which the word is used. When the answer is not clear, look for clues, context, tense, word type, grammar in the question and the answer choices. Let's look at an example of this one. His rude attitude made him intolerable. Which of the following words is a synonym for intolerable? First thing you want to do is use the elimination strategy. Okay, his rude attitude. We know that means he's probably not going to be likable or attractive. That leaves us with unbearable or angry. His rude attitude made him angry. Well, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It's his own attitude that's making others angry, not himself. But if what they're saying here for our example is if you look at the end, intolerable has the able on the end. It's making it an adjective out of that verb intolerate, okay? So likable has the able on the end. Unbearable has the able on the end. We know likable isn't right because a rude person wouldn't be likable. So that leaves us with the similar word formation, okay, and matching suffix or prefix, that able on the end, same as intolerable. There's your clue. Test taking strategy number 9. Read all charts, graphs, and diagrams. Read all the titles, labels, and other given information. Check the units of measurement. Make sure you know exactly what units they're talking about. Look for a pattern, trend, or comparison in the graph or table. So you can see we have two different graphs here. We have the pie graph, food. This is the Milton family's budget. Okay, food, miscellaneous clothes, savings, and rent. 25% of their budget. We assume that's going to be money, but of their money and of their income, 33% is food, 21% is miscellaneous, and so on. Looking over here, we have school attendance and science grades. On the y-axis, we have percentage, which is our label, and on the x-axis, we have students. So looking at this, you can see that we have Al, who his school attendance is higher than his science grade. Just a little bit though, they're pretty close. Ben has a lower school attendance and a lower science grade than Al, but still his science grade is a little bit higher than his school attendance. So looking down here at the key, that's what tells us the attendance or the science grade comparatively. Okay, again, make sure you're looking at all of the information. Try to also figure out why they're giving you this graph. There's got to be a reason, and there are bound to be questions about those graphs when you go to read those pieces on a test. Test taking strategy number 10. Read the maps. Make sure, again, you're reading the title of the map key or legend. Look at the scale if you can. Down here it tells you this length here from here to here is about 175 miles. So to me that looks like about 1/4 of an inch. So looking over here, about 1/4 of an inch, this one island down here, part of Japan, would maybe be 2 of those. So that would be about 350 miles long, this lower island of Japan. And of course, reread the question again to make sure you understand what the question is if there is a question about the map. Test taking strategy number 11, read the story. This is probably the most obvious, but it's a big one because a lot of students really just zip through the reading and they don't take time to take notes, to highlight, and to really understand what's going on in the story. And a lot of students end up missing pieces of the story and not comprehending everything that's going on because they're nervous about the test and they're nervous about the reading and they don't trust their own skills. Slow down, take your time. Answers about a problem of the story are usually found in the middle. Okay, the problem is also the conflict. Answers about how the problem was solved or the conflict was solved are usually found at the end of the story. Answers about where and when the story takes place are found at the beginning. Another hint is that if you're looking at a story, a fictional piece, especially if we're looking at the keystones, you might not be looking at a full story. A lot of times on the keystones, they'll only give you a piece of a story. So you have to kind of try to figure out where on that plot line this piece of the story falls into. So look for what's going on. Look for, is this an exposition? Is this the conflict? Is this maybe the resolution of the story? Try to think about it in terms of literary analysis and what you've learned throughout the year to put that story in context with the larger story that you're not getting to help you answer your questions. Test taking strategy number 12. Find that big idea. No matter whether you're reading fiction or nonfiction, you have to try to figure out what's the big idea. Look for the events and characters that make up the story. Look for the purpose of the story. Look for the point the author is trying to make. You guys know what that is, the moral of the story or the lesson. What do you call that? And remember, the topic is not the same thing as a theme. Tip down here, look for the big idea in the first 2 paragraphs of the story. A lot of times you'll get that, especially in a nonfiction piece. Whoops, go backwards there. You'll get the big idea in the first 2 paragraphs of a nonfiction piece. Try to stop after you've read the first paragraph or 2. Try to take a few notes and say, what am I getting out of this? What do they want me to learn by the end of this article? A lot of times you'll get your main idea just by taking a step back and writing yourself a single summary sentence. Here's an example. Read this outline of the article. Number 1, introduction. Number 2, Athenian democracy. Number 3, representative democracy. Number 4, conclusion. So which main idea belongs first under section 3, representative democracy? We have question answers here. Every citizen is a member of a government. A presidential election is like a town meeting. Al Gore got about 500,000 more votes than George Bush did. Or D, a few elected officials represent a very large population. Using all the strategies you've learned, you know you can eliminate the first one because it has that every citizen. A presidential election is like a town meeting. Well, that just doesn't make a whole lot of sense because an election is not the same thing as a meeting. This one, Al Gore got about 500,000 more votes than George Bush did. That might be a fact they've thrown in there, but does that really tell you what the main idea is of section 3? Then when you come down here, again, there's one of those general words, a few elected officials represent a very large population. Well, a few people representing more people. We're looking at the word represent right in here, and we have representative democracy. So working it all out, even if we didn't know the answer or might not have even understood the whole article, we can figure out the right answer here is going to be D. Don't be nervous. Use the strategies you've learned. Think about it. You guys are all smart enough to figure these answers out and outsmart the test makers. Couple more tips for you. If the test requires you to read passages and then answer questions about what you read, always read the questions first. That's why we've been giving you those constructed responses all year, telling you what the question is before you actually read the passage. Remember, never leave any question blank on a test, especially those constructed responses. Make sure that you're trying those out, Make sure you're using your racer strategy to get those done. Have a great day.